This video is about Two Point Hospital, how to improve the cure rate. As you see over here, I've got to increase from my current cure rate of 70% up to 90% for 20 patients. So there's a lot of different things you can do. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview. First of all, one of the things that I did is all the male doctors are over here on the left side, and all the females are over here on the right side. And what it does is it makes it a little bit more efficient because the females, if they need to switch from one job to another, for example, from this machine to the ward, they don't have to go running across the map. And the same is true for the men. They've got all of their equipment nearby. This is obviously something that a woman would use. And over here, I'm not sure. But what I did was I realized that I had some items that were kind of mixed where the men and the women were working in the same room. And I shifted everything over so that the women were in one room and the men were in another room. See, over here, we got a woman over here. I'm guessing that these are all the male doctors. So that's one thing that I did about the layout that made it a lot more efficient for my employees to get around. Now, keep in mind, this is not the original layout. I made a lot of changes and I just haven't finished it yet. Okay, so we'll look at some of the other items that are important for the cure rate. You want to have diagnosis and treatment rooms. You want to diagnose the patient as quickly as possible and then treat them as quickly as possible. So the plan that I use, you've got diagnosis over here, you've got diagnosis over here, you've got diagnosis over here. So all the diagnosis is relatively close. And then the treatment rooms are a little bit further out. There might be some cases where they have to go back and forth, and if that does happen, the solution is simple. You just put a diagnosis room over here, such as a general practitioner. It's a decision you got to make when you lay out your game. And keep in mind that certain rooms can do both diagnosis and treatment at the same time. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have a very well-trained staff. So you're going to go over here to your staff, and you're going to make sure that they are trained as well as possible and that they work as efficiently as possible. Now, keep in mind, again, there's two steps. One is diagnosis, and the other one is treatment. What will happen is you might send someone for diagnosis, and they might actually end up being treated. You could actually take people that are doing diagnosis and put them in for treatment. And let's say, for example, a guy has a certain rate. Let's say he has a very high rate of diagnosis. Send him to a room. You can pick which room he goes to, right? You can kick him out of a line, or you can switch the doctor, and you can put him in a room that is more towards treatment and less towards diagnosis. For example, you could have the nurse over here for diagnosis and the one over here for treatment, and when the guy has to go over here, you just switch the nurse. That's just an example. So the other thing you can do is make sure you've got as many skills as possible, but keep in mind there is a cost to having a lot of skills. And the way you manage the skills is also very important. For example, you've got genetics, and you have the mega scanner, and you could put, like, the mega scanner for me does diagnosis because that's the reason why the person's going to the scanner. And for the genetics, I could have put diagnosis, but it makes sense to make it treatment. So you want to make sure you align them a little bit properly. If you want to, you could have the psychiatrist with one level of psychiatry. You see how it says plus 20% treatment in psychiatry, and over here it's only 10? So you want to make sure, well, have the 20 treatment and the 20 diagnosis instead of mixing them. So having the right skills is really important. Plus 20% diagnosis in X-ray is really good. And then this is only plus 10. So what you can do is you can adjust your skills to make sure that that they do a better job. And also you want to make sure that they have the energy and the happiness, etc., and that their overall values are someone who's going to work really hard because they're going to cure people better if they're harder workers. You don't want them going on breaks and things like that. So the other thing you want to do is you want to upgrade all of your machines. Every machine has an upgrade option. You see over here, this one obviously needs a repair. They are all upgraded in my game. But when you upgrade it, it says Easy Scan 3. It's going to do a better job when it does diagnosis or, for example, treatment, which is in these other machines. You want to make sure that this is at the third level. Obviously, in a future release, they could add more than 3 levels, which would make it way more fun, a lot more decision making. So the other thing you want to do is I did a certain layout for doctors and nurses to make sure all the doctors are going to stay in this area, have their staff over here, the bathroom over here. You want to make sure that patients have the same type of flow. I did this just because I just designed it this way, right? The patients come in, they could easily enter. You see, they could enter this building and go to this guy, but there's no diagnosis here. This is not a diagnosis building. But he can take a patient out of the subway that goes in, walks in the door over here. It alleviates the patients coming into here when there's a long line. It gets them moving through the door faster. So it's one of the things I did to change the flow of patients. You see, I've got a little bit of empty space. I could easily put a general practitioner over here or in any of the wards. I don't know what you would call this building, any of the buildings. And you see this thing over here, the cafeteria, not that effective. My experience is that this is a low performing building, and maybe it's best to just get rid of it. You've got some, like this only has 28,000 for its value. This one's 84,000. So it's bringing in a low value. You might want to replace some of your rooms to make it easier for someone to perhaps get a general practitioner, which is these rooms over here. You could spread them out a little bit, and then maybe the patients don't have to walk around as much. For example, if they have a failed treatment. The other thing you can do is launch marketing campaigns for illnesses that are easy to cure. For example, lightheadedness is easy to cure, along with boggled mind, clamp, bed face, grout, etc. And what you'll do is you'll bring in all of those people, and you want to divide it up. You don't want to bring too many of the same people. It will make a long line, and it might keep some of your staff busy while the rest of your staff is free. So you want to kind of spread them out. I use a lot of marketing rooms. I guess I use 4. I don't remember. Got 5. What I do is I rotate. I have a list of in my mind, my amazing memory. And what I do is I launch 4 different campaigns at the same time so that it doesn't overload one particular service. And what I do is instead of doing all of them at 12 months, I might do all of them at 6 months. So that also it eases up on the campaign. The people will come in, and then maybe I'll do a different campaign with a different machine. So you don't get people hanging around, because they will come in a flood of people, and they could easily clog up your entire system. There's another option. You can send patients home. You can find a patient. For example, there's a patient right here. See, this person quit. there is an option with a patient that you can just send the patient home. I believe it has to be on the bottom over here. It has to be somebody that's already checked in. See over here it says send home. You can look at this guy and decide, well, his health is not at the right level and just send him home. The other thing that I do is if there's a long queue, here's a long queue. You can look at the list of patients. Here's the queue. And you can move them around. Like, this person over here needs to move up. So you move this person up, and this one over here I would move up because this person needs to be treated sooner. And you just scroll down. You got somebody over here who's really unhappy. Maybe scroll this one up. Give that person priority service. So that's a little trick you can use to get people in and out. And you got to keep on monitoring the line. See, here's one that could bump up right here. They'll go through the system a lot faster, and you can use it for all sorts of treatment rooms. There's another option, which is the diagnosis threshold. Under policy, you see it says diagnosis threshold for treatment, and you can either raise this or lower this. And what will happen is that it will send someone for treatment at a different percentage. Like if you want people to get a better diagnosis, you move it up. If you want them to get treatment sooner, you move it down. So over here it says fast track treatment decision. It means that a staff member will send someone for treatment when it reaches a certain threshold. Got an option over here. It says staff leave rooms when idle. And different options. You want your staff to be ready to work as much as possible. So keeping their staff rooms nearby, keeping them in the rooms, keeping everything they need, such as food and drink, is going to be more efficient. Sometimes what I do is, I put the snack in this area, for example, but I've got a lot of places where I can put snacks. The rooms, you know what? Maybe taking the snacks out of the room and putting diagnosis in the room would be better. That's actually a smart decision. I think it's something I'm going to do. I'm going to remove all the food items and put them in the hallway. So the other thing you can do is you can add items to your rooms. For example, you see I've got all these supercomputers over here that helps with the diagnosis work that he's doing. And you can check each item as you place them. Some of them, for example, this cabinet over here, doesn't give you the stats over here. You have to go to where the items are. And you're going to find that a certain item is going to help with treatment and diagnosis. You go over here, and then you're going to, I'm going to go to one of these rooms. And you see the medicine cabinet over here is for diagnosis and treatment +1. So you can go through all the items. I'm sure it's going to be the same in every room. Like as you'll see that this cupboard does not add to diagnosis or treatment. And you will find that some might do more than others or occupy different space. For example, the one that hangs on the wall you'll be able to put it in some places where you can't put the cabinets. They are in the wards. Over here you have a wall monitor. And even though it is +1, you can put the wall monitor over here. If you put a cabinet, maybe they can't walk around. So sometimes you're going to put a different item that's going to give you a special bonus. The other thing you can do is you can adjust your prices because it can impact your cure rate. For example, make it expensive for a less curable disease, and then the patients won't come to the hospital because they don't want to pay for it. Or make it cheap or the minimum price for a disease that's easy to cure, and you'll probably increase the number of people. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to where it says prices, and you're going to find something that you think is going to improve curing or diagnosis and adjust the pricing appropriately so that you can treat people. For example, over here we've got treatment for the PANS lab. I could bring this down. Let's see how far down it goes. It goes down to 1,700, 80% discount. And if you got your system set up for that treatment, you'll bring in more people, and bringing in more people means, and if you're set up to cure them properly, you will increase your cure rate. So over here we've got different items. Obviously you have your awards and the leaderboard, which shows that my amazing cure rate is 87%. And obviously it's not going to be in finance, but guess where it's going to be? It's going to be under patients. So you want to watch these graphs. If you see that something is not working, check out these graphs and try to pay attention to what is going down. So over here we've got a queue length. People quitting is at 14. People at the near death, 1. You can make adjustments in order to watch the cure rate and try to make it trend upwards. You do want that trend to go upwards. And of course, watching the log is going to give you a little bit of information. See over here it says illness difficulty. You can go and you can look and you can gather some information. If you don't want to use the internet, you want to use the game to figure out what's going on, this can really help you out. In fact, over here it tells you that tiliboffin was cured. Okay, so that's a little bit about cure rates. You notice the staff skill is really low. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.